I want you to watch this scene from A New Hope. The stormtroopers come through the doorway. They drop the rebel defenders in 7 seconds. They take the ship. The Empire's first on-screen ground operation in the entire saga is a textbook close-quarters boarding action. Casualties on the Imperial side, 2. Casualties on the Rebel side, total. They wipe out the security force. They take a sealed corvette. They capture a princess. Now I want you to watch this one. 3 rebels at point-blank range against 20-plus stormtroopers. The stormtroopers miss. The rebels escape down a garbage chute. Same uniform, same rifle, same training program. Different scene, different orders. And it's going to take us about 20 minutes tonight to walk through the specific Imperial doctrine that explains why the same soldiers can clear the Tantive IV in under a minute and miss 3 teenagers in a hallway, and why Disney spent 30 years pretending those scenes were the same scene because the meme was easier than reading the source books. The stormtroopers were never useless. They were Marines. The Empire just didn't always send Marines. The boarding action is the entire argument in 70 seconds of film. Vader's Star Destroyer, the Devastator, locked a tractor beam onto the Rebel Corvette and dragged it into its lower hangar above Tatooine. Stormtroopers of Vader's personal 501st Legion deployed through the port airlock via a docking tube/magnetic clamp, cut the door, and flooded the corridors. The rebels had prepared positions. They had warning. They knew which door was coming down. The Wikipedia article for the engagement lists rebel casualties as many, including 10 unnamed troopers shot in the corridor and Captain Ramus Antilles strangled by Vader, against several stormtroopers. That ratio, in a boarding action against a defended ship with no element of surprise, is what trained soldiers look like. The Legends Wikipedia article on the Stormtrooper Corps names the doctrine plainly. When serving with the Navy, stormtroopers served as Marines and ensured loyalty aboard ships, as well as acting as security forces on both ships and battle stations. The same article quotes TX 5532 from the Imperial Handbook, a commander's guide. Stormtroopers are the knife's edge. We are the first to go in. We face the enemy where they are strongest. We don't stop until we have achieved our objective. The Imperial Army walks in the path we blaze. That's not mythology. That's written doctrine. The original trilogy opened with the correct deployment of a rapid assault boarding force, and the audience read it as the baseline and moved on. The detention block built the meme. Han, Luke, and Chewie in stolen armor. Corridor full of stormtroopers. Shots everywhere. Nobody significant dies. The comedy writes itself. Tarkin and Vader had a tracker aboard the Millennium Falcon. The operational objective wasn't to kill the rebels. It was to follow them back to the hidden base on Yavin 4. The dialogue is in the film. Tarkin tells Vader to leave it to him. Vader confirms the tracker is set. The stormtroopers in that detention block corridor were inside a specific command structure with a documented strategic reason to let 3 people walk out of the Death Star alive. That isn't incompetence. That is compliance with a standing operational objective at the cost of a hallway firefight that looks terrible to anyone who doesn't know the orders. Millions of viewers concluded the stormtroopers couldn't shoot. What they were actually watching was soldiers doing exactly what they were told. The meme mistook discipline for failure. October 1989. West End Games published the Star Wars Imperial Sourcebook, written by Greg Gordon. 144 pages. Product number WEG 40006. ISBN 0874311756. The second edition, released June 1994, was framed in its own Wikipedia entry as an in-universe report on the Empire compiled for Mon Mothma by Arhul Hextraphon, a rebel intelligence dossier on the military structure trying to destroy them. Chapter 4 covers the military. Chapter 11 covers special military forces. Chapter 12 covers recruitment, training, and indoctrination. The two-branch structure runs through all three. In Legends, the Stormtrooper Corps operated alongside the Imperial Army, belonging to neither, an independent military branch with its own command structure, answering directly to Palpatine and Vader. The Karita Academy on the planet Karita was its central training facility, described in the Legends Wikipedia entry as the premier institution for producing stormtroopers through a 2-year program so demanding that most candidates washed out. Crucially, those who failed Karita were still considered viable recruits to both the Imperial Army and Navy. The rejects from the elite pipeline fed the regular force. The tier structure wasn't an accident, it was the architecture. The Corps was described as the smallest of the primary 3 branches of the military. That smallness was deliberate. You don't mass-produce a rapid deployment shock force. You build it in controlled numbers, run it through the hardest training in the galaxy, and deploy it when the mission requires it. James Luceno's Tarkin, published November 4, 2014, by Del Rey, is an official Disney canon novel, one of the first released under the Lucasfilm Story Group's new framework. The publisher's summary is direct. Rule through the fear of force, rather than force itself, he advises his emperor. The Death Star exists because sufficient threat makes actual force unnecessary most of the time. The Imperial Army, assembled from local planetary defense forces conscripted during Imperial expansion, exists to hold ground and be visible. It isn't designed to win elite engagements. It's designed to occupy territory and be seen doing it. The quality differential between Army and Corps was doctrinal policy, not production budget. The canon Wikipedia article on the Imperial Army confirms the recruitment pipeline that explains the gap. Many soldiers in the Imperial Army were members of local planetary defense forces who took up arms during the Clone Wars and were subsequently conscripted into Imperial service. Not centrally recruited, not run through Karita. Conscripts absorbed from occupied worlds, trained at scattered drop camps to whatever standard those camps could maintain. The Legends Imperial Army Trooper article draws the operational line precisely. The Corps was employed for boarding actions and attacking enemy positions, while Army troopers were used to secure ground already taken. 2 instruments, 2 missions, 2 quality levels by institutional design. Timothy Zahn built his Thrawn trilogy inside that structure. Heir to the Empire in 1991, Dark Force Rising in 1992, The Last Command in 1993. The EU sustained that framework for 3 decades. It was the default reading of the Imperial military until Disney acquired Lucasfilm in October 2012. The collapse started with a retrocon. Revenge of the Sith in 2005 showed clone troopers in stormtrooper armor, locking the visual identity of the Corps to the elite clone army. Audiences coming through the prequels absorbed the default assumption that stormtroopers were clones, elite soldiers by origin, and the separate Imperial Army barely registered. That assumption degraded the 2-branch framework the sourcebooks had maintained since 1989. In April 2014, the Lucasfilm Story Group reclassified all pre-Disney EU material as Legends, non-canon. In post-2014 Disney canon, the Stormtrooper Corps was restructured from an independent branch into a subdivision of the Imperial Army, confirmed in canon Wikipedia. The organizational separation that justified the quality differential was administratively dissolved. Then the sequel trilogy completed the job. The First Order eliminated the parallel force model entirely. Project Resurrection, the program documented in canon sources as abducting children from across the galaxy and raising them as soldiers from infancy, replaced both pipelines with one. Finn discloses it to Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens within the film's first 15 minutes. He was taken as a child. There is no separate army. There are just stormtroopers who lose fights, because the writers inherited a meme and wrote to it, rather than examining what it had originally meant. Andor Season 2 premiered on Disney Plus in April 2025. Episode 8, Who Are You?, written by Dan Gilroy, broadcast May 6th, centers on the Gorman Massacre. Official materials describe the forces deployed at Gorman as Imperial Stormtroopers in white armor. Canon Wikipedia still maintains the category of Imperial Security Troopers, classified as a specialization of Imperial Army troopers who served as security soldiers across the Empire, explicitly distinct from the Stormtrooper Corps. The lore infrastructure underneath the scene maps onto the pre-Disney doctrinal split: occupation troops assigned to hold a planet and be visible, not a rapid assault force deployed to win a decisive engagement. The Tarkin doctrine applied on-screen in a Disney Plus series, without a single line of exposition explaining it. Episode 9, Welcome to the Rebellion, follows the aftermath. Mon Mothma goes to the Senate floor and gives the speech the show built toward across 2 seasons. Standing in the chamber, she calls what happened on Gorman unprovoked genocide. She doesn't recite the Tarkin doctrine. She describes its end state, from the side trying to survive it. Tony Gilroy, the series creator, described the production's intent without ambiguity. "We spent 6 years making a show about the fascist takeover of a galaxy far, far away. We didn't think we were making a documentary." Thousands of viewers in comment sections had already identified pieces of this: the tracker plot, the ordered to misinterpretation, the Marines' framing, independently, without anyone assembling the full argument into a single coherent form. They were right. The West End Games sourcebook confirmed it in 1989. Andor showed it on screen in 2025. The Stormtroopers were never useless. They were Marines. The Empire just didn't always send Marines. Disney forgot. Andor remembered. The question is whether anything else they make will. Subscribe for more stories like this.